There is a sense, isn't there, Dean, in which only the Thanksgiving scriptures can be sung. Thanks for singing that passage for us this morning. Well, as Esther told you a little later today, I am going to be getting on a plane and flying off to Phoenix, where I arranged all my doctor's appointments and my appointment with my dentist. That's not the real reason I'm going, of course, but I'm going to be able to spend Thanksgiving with my wife and my daughter and her husband and granddaughter. I'll be getting on that plane later this afternoon, and thinking about that plane reminded me of a time several years ago when I found myself on a plane flying from Spokane to a national church meeting that was being held in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The plane was crammed in. We were crammed in there like sardines in a tin can. The guy next to me had his elbows in my ribs, and we were so crowded in that plane that there was not a chance in the world that I could reach under the seat to the briefcase I had brought with me, filled with the work I intended to do on the plane. There was nothing I could do but sit there and think. And you know what dangerous business thinking can be. On this particular day, my mind chose to dwell on an article I had read in the newspaper just the day before, purporting to report the findings of a study that had come to the conclusion that a fully loaded plane was 5 times more likely to crash than one that was 3/4 of the way full. I sat there trying to avoid that guy's arms in my ribs, and it came to me that every seat on that plane was filled. I mean, all 3 seats on both sides of the aisles, from the front of the plane to the back, were filled. And I got to thinking as well about the monstrous amount of luggage that we had stuffed into those overhead bins. And the scene came back to me of all the luggage was loaded off of the carts into the belly of the plane. And the more I thought, the more the prospect of a plane crash became a real thing to me. And I was beginning to get a little bit nervous. But I have always believed that it's necessary for us to take charge of our fears, and I knew that I had to do something about it. There wasn't very much I could do, but I could reach the advertising brochures that were in the seat pocket in front of me. And so I was reduced on that day by a crowded plane, an overactive mind, and unrealistic fear to reading those advertising brochures. I reached in there and pulled out one that told me about various wonderful vacations that I could take if only I had the money to do so. My eye was attracted to one particular advertisement, an advertisement for a vacation in Hawaii, and the brochure about it described Hawaii as a series of islands born of fire and alive with passion. Born of fire and alive with passion. Now, I have a fair idea of what the brochure was trying to get at, but that doesn't interest me this morning, at least not at this very moment. I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is the way in which that phrase, born of fire and alive with passion, describes the wonderful lifestyle of gratitude and thanksgiving that the Apostle Paul urges on us in the text that Ding sang for us and read for us from the book of Philippians. Now you know and I know that phrase was not a real description of Hawaii, but it is a genuine description both of what the lifestyle, the wonderful lifestyle of gratitude, both of where it comes from and what it can do for us. Because the truth of the matter is that gratitude is often born of fire. That is to say that gratitude often comes to us through facing the difficulties of life head on. If you stop to think about it, all of us really know that from the experiences that we've had in life. We all know that gratitude comes from overcoming the difficulties of life. For who is there that is more grateful for the gift of health than the person who has recently come through a serious surgery? Who is there that is more grateful for the material blessings of life than those who have lost everything that they owned in a fire or in a flood or in a tornado? Who is there who is more grateful for morning light than the person who has wrestled through the dark of the night with nary a wink of sleep? It's true, isn't it? The difficulties of life are often the crucible out of which we learn to love more intensely, to devote ourselves more fully to the things that really matter in life, and most certainly to give thanks for those things about which we otherwise might spend our life complaining. I'm thinking, for example, of a French chef about whom I read not too long ago. His name was Christian Melou, and he was being interviewed by the editor of a gourmet food magazine. And the editor in the interview asked him if he could name for her the greatest restaurant in the world, the best restaurant in all the world. He said, "Oh, that's easy." He said it was 1945, and the Allies had just liberated Paris. And I, he said, as a teenager that day, found myself riding on the side of an Allied tank that was making itself ever so slowly through the streets of Paris. But along about noon, he said, the tank pulled over on a grassy strip alongside the road, and it was time for lunch. Now, he said, I was 15 years old at the time, and throughout the whole German occupation of Paris, I had been forced to stay in hiding. And during that time, my diet had consisted entirely of rutabagas. Rutabagas for breakfast, rutabagas for lunch, rutabagas for dinner, rutabagas Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But he said on this day, when they pulled that tank onto that grassy strip, the soldiers invited me to share their lunch. They gave me a box of K-rations and a cup of Nescafe. And from that day to this, the world's greatest restaurant for me has been an anonymous muddy tank parked alongside the road somewhere in Paris. It's really true, isn't it? Gratitude is born of fire. But it is also true that gratitude is alive with passion. That is to say that gratitude enables to live life with happiness, with purpose, with joy, with meaning. Somebody has put it this way: there is a master key to gratitude, to happiness, and that master key is gratitude. For gratitude opens all the doors of life. It is true, of course, that the opposite also happens. Ingratitude closes doors in life, and a spirit of ingratitude keeps us from living life with any sense of happiness, with any sense of integrity, with any sense of joy. I'm thinking about a woman of whom I read who was flying with a pilot in a small plane, and the plane crashed somewhere in a remote mountain area. The pilot was killed immediately. She was thrown out of the plane. Her back was broken, and she lay in the snow of that remote, cold mountain for 5 hours before she was rescued and taken to a hospital in Houston. A couple of days after she was placed in the hospital, the chaplain from the hospital went to see her, and he had no more than walked into the room when she immediately said to him with a sneer in her voice, "Well, I suppose you are going to tell me that I ought to be grateful to be alive and that I was saved by some kind of a miracle. Well, save your breath." And then she sighed and said to him, "How cruel life is." 2 months later, when she was able to leave the hospital, she walked out on her own power with very little residue of pain. And when she walked through those hospital doors, it was literally true that she had not spoken one word in that hospital that was not a word of complaint. And the chaplain, watching her go, said of her, "There goes the most unhappy woman I have ever known, because she believes wholeheartedly in the philosophy, 'This is the day the devil has made. Let us complain and be miserable in it.'" The point of all of this, as you well know, is that gratitude is a choice that we make. It is not something that comes to us automatically, nor is it something that comes to us easily most of the time. Gratitude is a matter of disciplining our vision to see the good that is in every situation that we face in life. And that is why in the text that we read this morning, the Apostle Paul did not end that text with simply an admonition to rejoice and be grateful. Instead, he ended that text with a technique that can help us to hold on to the gratitude that will make such a difference in life. He said the key to gratitude is to keep your vision on what is true, what is holy, what is pure, what is good. The good, the holy, the pure, and the true. Nor is that a piece of advice that comes to us from some naive person who never had to face the difficulties of life. Because you remember that when Paul wrote those words that Dean sang and read for us, Paul was sitting in a jail cell with no idea of what the future might hold for him. But sitting in that jail cell, Paul opted for gratitude. He went so far as to say to those Philippian people, look, I don't want you wringing your hands and worrying about my imprisonment. I want you to understand that this imprisonment has actually advanced the cause of Christ. Why? Because I've been able to talk to my guard about Christ. And now the word about Jesus Christ has spread to the whole battalion that is guarding in this prison. Gratitude was the choice that Paul made, sitting in a prison cell when everything appeared to be pretty bleak for him. And I suppose that is why when we read in the book of Acts the story of Paul's life, we are confronted there by a man of immense gratitude and thanksgiving. We are confronted there by a man who is utterly persistent in looking for the good in every situation in life. We're confronted there with a man whose attitude toward life is summed up in some words he spoke when he faced his last arrest and his last imprisonment, and said, "The Lord has stood by me. The Lord has stood by me all my life, and He will rescue me from all evil and bring me safe into His eternal kingdom. To God be the glory forever and ever." That was Paul's thanksgiving prayer. May it be our thanksgiving prayer as well. To God be the glory forever and ever. Let us pray. O gracious Creator who has filled the world with beauty, open our eyes to behold your gracious hand in all your works, that rejoicing in your whole creation, we may learn to serve you with gladness. Amen.